You know, I have this idea that a lot of the ideas that come to us from things like metaphysical sciences are actually ways that we are self hypnotizing. And an example that I can give of that I believe should be clear to a lot of people comes from the use of divination tools such as astrology, numerology, runes, and the like. And so here's the example that I mean about that. When somebody uses these tools and they have this belief or faith in them that it's somehow going to help to divine something about their personality or their life, maybe somewhere along the timeline, like their future or something like that, what they're actually doing is a type of auto suggestion, as Emile Coué, the French physician and hypnotist, and was borrowed as a term by Napoleon Hill, who wrote the book Think and Grow Rich. But it's an auto suggestion, which is in turn Emile Coué, being French and very closer to the time than we are, in fact, as Anton von Mesmer, who we get the term mesmerize from. And this is all auto-suggestion is really another way of saying self-hypnosis, because hypnosis is founded on the art of skillful suggestion. And so when someone uses these tools, whether you believe in them or not, or whether your faith itself tends to look at these things as being, impurities or just unclean acts, as some people might say, using astrology or numerology or Viking runes and things like that. The the point, the practical, the applicable message here to look at, to understand is these tools in many ways, and I am not asserting that this is their exclusive, the exclusive domain of where their power, if you will, lies. Because there are other experiences that, ones of my own personal experiences, that seem to defy even what I'm about to say. But this is a practical thing that comes from the science of hypnosis and suggestion that seems to be at least part of the domain in which these things act. And one of them happens to be, as I said, auto-suggestion. So, for example, if a person looks at, they have some time in their life, maybe it's their personal day, where in they have a numeral 8, which signifies power, money, and fame. And they know that that day is coming up, or that they should do certain things on that day in order to bring about this financial windfall. And I use that example because it's something that's important to a lot of people in this physical world, right? They tend to behave and do and act differently. And that's because it was suggested to them by the system of numerology that if they perhaps ask for a raise or start a business or look for a new job when they are operating under the number or numeral vibration of an 8, then it will be more successful for them. So they are actually changing their behavior based on something that they receive from this divination tool. And that is really the essence of the art and science of hypnosis. One of the definitions is that it's anything that attempts to control or change human behavior. attempts to and does or does change and control human behavior. But that's very clinical and might sound harsh, like, oh, control. But you remember, auto-suggestion is you controlling and changing your own behavior, right? So in understanding it in this way, that you actually, or one, a person who uses these tools and they change their behavior based on what these numbers or what the stars say, they are operating under and operating by auto-suggestion, a suggestion, something that was suggested to them by these numbers or the arrangement of stars, the astrology, so on and so forth, the things that these things say, and they're changing their behavior because of it. Now, I'm not saying this is the exclusive way that whatever results a person gets is due to simply and only, I should say, auto-suggestion and the behavioral change. But we have to be realistic about this, that if you, for example, don't use numerology and you don't know that there's a numeral 8 coming up, which is favorable for you to have some kind of financial or career success, and you don't do anything, chances are 100% that there's going to be no result of doing nothing, right? 0 times 0 is 0. You can't multiply 0, right? Just like that saying that says that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, whether that be in basketball or archery, right? So by the simple act of you changing your behavior and going for something that you didn't before because it was suggested to you by some one of these divination tools, is the very exact definition of self-hypnosis. You looked at something, you decided to make a change in your behavior because of what this something you decided to investigate, and therefore you made that change in your behavior and got a result. Because you're more likely to get a result from something than if you take an action than if you don't, right? I mean, of course, there are probabilities, there's a chance that something will happen without you doing something because it just happened to be favorable. Somebody else might have quit their job and a position opened up to give you a raise in a better position, right? But we're not talking about that, right? That's the same thing as in physics, right? With the second law of thermodynamics and entropy, where there is a chance that in the very room where you are sitting, standing, or lying down, right, that all of the air molecules will all of a sudden have a negative entropy and all of a sudden decide that they want to completely organize themselves in one corner of the room, all of the air molecules all away from where you are, and you suffocate and die. It's completely improbable, but it's not impossible according to the laws of physics that there can be some negative entropy at some time where that happens, right? But what I'm saying is that the chances of that are probably a lot less, but similar to in astronomical perspectives of you just spontaneously getting some windfall from not doing anything, from not taking any action, right? And so again, when you think that some metaphysical tool, and this is, I must say, no detraction from anybody's belief system of any kind. And I have to say that because I want people to understand me clearly. It doesn't matter whether you pray or you roll some dice or you turn over some cards or you use some runes or you look at the stars or you check the numbers. If you change your behavior and do something positive or negative based on what those divination tools have suggested to you, you change your behavior because of suggestion of this metaphysical tool, and then there's a result, an outcome from that, then that can be considered what I call metaphysical hypnosis, right? That's actually one of the ways that it works more often than not, from my understanding, how people get a lot of results, because they're simply putting their attention towards something in a way that they wouldn't have before, because they have the belief that what they are doing is going to affect that change. And this is very similar to what is known, and I changed it slightly. I call the placebo response. People call it the placebo effect, but it's really a response. People are responding to placebos when a medical professional tells them that a medication is going to have an effect, or they do a fake surgery, this has been done, and tell them that it's going to have effect, and the person believes it. They're suggested something, and they believe it. And by the way, a medical doctor or someone else in a position of authority is the first hypnotic modality that I learned in the Hypnosis Motivation Institute that helps to change human belief systems, right? So this placebo response, because they think they're getting something that's going to do better for them, they believe it, they believe the suggestion that they will heal or have a change, and they do, and that's the placebo response. And this is very similar. As a matter of fact, hypnosis in general is very similar to a lot of these different psychological concepts that are applied and have these kind of changes in people's lives. I'm specifically talking about it here as metaphysical hypnosis. And the important thing to take away about this, whether it be in your finances, your mental health, or your physical health, right? People often like to use this triplet of happiness, health, and wealth. What matters, the important thing is that it works. This does not take away from the fact that it actually works for a lot of people. And that's the point of this. But I'm simply opening it up a little bit to look inside and take a look at what is actually going on here. In some cases, again, I'm not saying all the time, because even personally in my life, I have had experiences that completely go beyond any rational, scientific, logical, mathematical explanation that I know of. And I really look deep into the outer edges of science and physics, where the concepts that you might think are science fiction are actually things that are spoken about in different interpretations, for example, of quantum mechanics, right? Like the many worlds interpretation and multiverses and things like that, and quantum entanglement, and what Einstein is supposedly said to have called spooky action at a distance. These are all things that are in science and that come out of mathematics, right? Inflation theory, the Big Bang, all of these things, that there may be infinite universes, there's infinity, there's crazy things called Boltzmann brains, where your mind might just spontaneously form in the exact way it is right now in space, with all your thoughts and memories and everything like that somewhere, and think that it's you listening to this conversation, this talk right now. I mean, so I'm aware of a lot of things that are really far out there, but there are explanations, there are experiences that I've even had myself that don't fit into any of those. So this doesn't mean that because I can dismantle something in a step-by-step way that might be based in psychology, neuroscience, physics, or anything like that, that it doesn't have some other underlying, more fundamental and far-reaching aspect to it. But that is, I'm looking at these metaphysical tools and these supernatural topics and realizing that a lot of times the things that we should be able to separate what actually is metaphysical, supernatural, and paranormal from the normal, natural, and physical, right? Because then, the one definition that I use of metaphysics is an acronym that comes from the fact that I look at what some people might see as both sides of, you know, the same fence. I look at the metaphysics and the physics, and even one of the definitions that I use of metaphysics is the next to the original definition, which is comes from the Greek meta, which means above or beyond, and physica, which means natural, so beyond the natural, right? Which is similar to the Latin word supernatural and also paranormal, right? What we're looking at here is I say meta, M-E-T-A, we should understand at least the foundation of mathematical, experimental, theoretical, and applied physics. That's the META, mathematics, experiment, theoretical, and applied physics. That's my metaphysics as well. So we can make a line of demarcation to say where the metaphysics actually starts, the beyond the natural, right? Which sometimes I don't even like that definition of beyond the natural, because really isn't all of nature one? So, but it is interesting to make this demarcation because these are actually really academic fields of study is what they are. And we should be able to look at what they are. That's all I'm saying, is that we find this line of demarcation. What's the line between physics and metaphysics? So, and a lot of these things, when we look at these metaphysical tools and we get these results, it's really a form of self-hypnosis. And this is just one of the things that I'll be getting really deeply into through the Institute of Metaphysical Hypnosis. There are a lot of really amazing things that are going to come out of that. Some of them are very controversial, and I'm looking forward to blowing some people's minds when that eventually comes to light. Until next time, stay well.